May 2011 at midnight, Dan Saunders is watching police lights through his five-star hotel window. His hands won't stop shaking. 4 months ago, he was a broke bartender in a small town in Australia. Then he found an ATM with a glitch. Not a small glitch, an infinite money glitch. Every night at exactly 1 a.m., the banking system goes blind and he can hack it. Dan's stolen $1.6 million. Cash, private jets to Bali, champagne that costs more than cars, but tonight the lights outside aren't going away. The sirens are getting louder. Someone's at the door. But how did a regular guy hack the banking system to withdraw infinite cash? And how long can he get away with it before the bill comes due? 4 months earlier, on a warm February night in 2011, Wangaratta, Australia, a quiet country town far from any city lights. Dan Saunders pushes through the pub's sticky door at last call, 29, broke, and invisible to everyone but the bartender waiting for his tip. He's low on cash and a bit tipsy, wandering under flickering street lamps to find an ATM. The clock strikes midnight as he slips in his worn bank card. He's just hoping to pull out enough money for a cab home. Instead, the ATM screen flashes a strange error. Balance unavailable at this time. The screen flickers. For a second, Dan swears he sees his actual balance, $3.42. Then it's gone. Dan furrows his brow. That's odd. He knows he barely has any money in his savings account, just a few dollars. But this message isn't a typical insufficient funds warning. The beer makes him bold enough to try something stupid. He flips through the ATM's menu and attempts to transfer $200 from his credit account to his empty savings account. If it works, maybe he can then withdraw it. He taps confirm. The machine whirs for a moment, then spits out his card with a new message. Transaction canceled. No money, no receipt, nothing. It's past midnight and it looks like the ATM is acting up. Most people would shrug and walk away. Dan almost does. But something about that glitch sticks in his mind. It's late, he's buzzed, and he has nothing to lose. He slides his card back in and this time selects withdraw $200 from the savings account that he knows is nearly empty. A soft count-clicking sound comes from inside the machine, and to his surprise, it spits out $200 in cash. He counts the bills twice. They're real. The serial numbers are different. This isn't a dream. A security camera blinks red above him. Dan freezes. Has it been recording this whole time? Dan's jaw drops. He blinks at the notes in his hand. This shouldn't be possible. But here it is, free money. He glances around the deserted street. No alarms, no security guards tackling him. Just the hum of the ATM and the thump of his heart. Did he just get away with an overdraft? Or is this ATM truly blind to his balance? Stuffing the cash in his pocket, Dan hurries back to the bar, mind racing. He buys a final round of drinks for friends, acting like nothing happened. But inside, he's buzzing. Was it a fluke? A bank error? Would it work again? On the walk home, he can't resist testing the machine once more. The town is quiet, the ATM glowing in the darkness like a beacon. Dan takes a breath and inserts his card for a third time that night. He tries another transfer between accounts, $500 this time, then attempts a $500 withdrawal. The machine dispenses the cash without a hiccup. Emboldened, he goes for $600 next. More cash straight into his hand. Dan laughs out loud on the empty street, half in disbelief. It feels like he's found a cheat code to reality. Up, up, down, down, infinite cash. By the time he finally heads home, his wallet is bulging with hundreds, and his mind is swirling with possibilities. Tomorrow, the bank will know. Tomorrow, alarms will sound. Tomorrow, Dan's life ends. But tonight, he counts $300 in cash and wonders, what if tomorrow never comes and the bank never knows? Morning light slices through Dan's blinds. He rolls over groggily, half convinced the previous night was just a boozy hallucination. Surely he didn't actually pull cash out of thin air. But there on his nightstand sits a fat wallet with a $2,000 that wasn't there yesterday. Dan's heart skips. It was real. He didn't dream it. He really walked home with a small fortune. Hands trembling, He grabs his phone and calls his bank's automated hotline to check his balance. The robotic voice reads out his savings account total, negative $2,000. Dan exhales. So the money came from somewhere. He's technically in the red now, but the bank hasn't shut anything down. Not yet. Dan scribbles a plan. If the ATM lets him grab cash while it's offline, he can return it with a bogus transfer before anyone notices. Each night, he'll cover the previous day's negative balance with an even larger phantom transfer in that 1 to 3 a.m. window. In theory, he can loop this indefinitely, conjuring money that vanishes and reappears like a yo-yo. It sounds crazy, but last night proved the system can be tricked. Only one way to know for sure: try again. That very night, Dan returns to the same ATM under the stars, heart hammering in his chest. He waits until the stroke of 1 a.m., card in. This time, he's bold. He transfers $4,000 from his credit account to his savings, a bogus move since his credit limit is nowhere near that high. And the ATM, oblivious to reality, obliges. He then withdraws another $2,000 cash, enough to clear yesterday's debt. If his hunch is right, by tomorrow his account will be $4,000 when that fake transfer is reversed. But he can leapfrog it again with an even larger transfer. It's a leap of faith in a glitchy system, and it works. The next day, no panicked call from the bank, just a new, bigger negative balance, waiting for its own cover. So Dan pushes the envelope further. Night after night, transfer after transfer, withdrawal after withdrawal, he cooks the books in his favor. 8,000, 16,000, the phantom funds balloon. On day 12, the ATM freezes mid-transaction. For 30 seconds, Dan's card stays trapped inside. He can't breathe. Then, click, it slides out. Business as usual. Within a few weeks, Dan walks into a bank branch and nearly collapses when the teller casually mentions his savings balance. Over $1 million. On paper, he's a millionaire. Dan stares at that number. 7 figures flickering on a screen, and feels a thrill unlike anything in his life. With a few keystrokes at the right hour, he has spawned a personal money tree. Cash growing out of pure nothing. The adrenaline is intoxicating. He feels like a caveman discovering fire. This secret, this exploit is his alone. No one is stopping him. Not the bank's fraud alerts, they haven't so much as called. Not the cops, they have no clue. Dan steps out of the bank into the sunshine, pulse thundering. He could pay off his debts, sure. But why stop there? If you found a glitch that let you print money, what would you do? Pay your bills and go back to normal? Or chase the wild possibilities it opens? Dan already knows his answer, and you will be surprised with it. And so begins the wildest ride of Dan's life. Over the next 5 months, he burns through money like it's going out of style. Roughly $1.6 million in total. Each day brings a new jaw-dropping splurge. He charters a private jet to Bali for a weekend of luxury villas and beachside cocktails. The pilot asks how a bartender affords this. Dan's answer is practiced. Crypto. The pilot nods. Everyone believes in crypto. But at 3 a.m. in a Bali villa, Dan's phone buzzes. Unknown number. Melbourne area code. His champagne glass slips through his fingers. He books entire floors of 5-star hotels, tossing $100 tips to staff like confetti. At a downtown nightclub, Dan plunks down his black card and treats everyone in VIP to top-shelf champagne, a $50,000 night to remember. He throws parties where the champagne flows freely, the bar tab alone enough to buy a new car. It's not all self-indulgence either. Dan discovers that giving money away can be its own high. When a friend mentions he's struggling to pay university tuition, Dan quietly wires the full amount to settle it. He pays off another buddy's student loans without blinking. At one point, he even covers the debt of a casual acquaintance, just because he can. If you have imagination and money, you can make people's wildest dreams come true, he muses, grinning at the stunned gratitude around him. For a while, he becomes a local legend, the bartender turned secret millionaire who'll pick up the tab and then some. People who never knew his name suddenly remember they went to primary school together. Strangers cozy up to him, sensing the aura of easy money. He notices men treating him with new deference, Women who never gave him a second glance now hanging on his every word. Having money, or rather looking like you do, changes everything. Dan revels in it. He's living a life that feels stolen from a movie montage. Private jets, penthouse suites, VIP treatment everywhere he goes. And all of it powered by a glitch that no one else knows about. Each night, he still performs his little midnight ritual, shuffling money between phantom accounts to keep the illusion alive. It's a small price to pay for the freedom to do anything, be anyone, in the daylight. He lies to his family about where the cash came from, concocting stories that he's an investment banker, or in real estate, anything but the truth. Deep down, he knows he's living on borrowed time and borrowed money, but the thrill is too great to stop. Not yet. One night in a swanky Melbourne bar, his close friend Jake grabs Dan's wrist as he reaches for his card. "I know what you're doing." The music stops in Dan's head. "The transfers, the midnight ATM runs. I saw you last week." Dan's mouth goes dry. Jake leans closer. "You're going to prison, mate, and I can't watch it happen." He drops Dan's wrist and walks out. Dan orders another bottle, the most expensive one they have. In these moments, Dan pushes aside the nagging pit in his stomach. He's addicted to the rush of being the high roller, the hero, the man of the hour. Yet late at night, when the parties die down and he's alone with his thoughts, Dan sometimes feels a shadow creeping in, a silent dread in the back of his mind like the distant rumble of a coming storm. As spring 2011 wears on, that shadow grows. He knows logically that this can't go on forever. Every joyride eventually runs out of road. But how will it happen? And when? By late spring 2011, Dan's nerves are shot. The man who once reveled in free money now jumps at every shadow. Night after night, he bolts awake from the same nightmare. Red and blue lights flashing through his window, authorities finally come to drag him away. He's developed a constant tremor in his hands. Anxiety attacks hit at random, his heart racing as if trying to escape his chest. Dan develops a ritual. Every morning he Googles his name plus arrest and fraud. Nothing yet, but yet is doing heavy lifting. When the phone rings, he snatches it up immediately, half hoping it's someone who will end this charade. In quieter moments, he asks himself what he's become. After a lifetime of playing by the rules, he's broken everyone, and his conscience just won't stay quiet. Meanwhile, the bank still hasn't caught on. Their fraud department calls occasionally, but only to confirm his latest outrageous expenditures. "Did you spend $8,000 at a luxury hotel?" they inquire. "Yes, that was me," Dan sighs into the phone. "All right, no worries, just checking," the rep chirps. It's absurd, almost comical. Here he is living off stolen money, and the only thing the bank says is "thanks for your business." But Dan can't laugh anymore. He's exhausted, paranoid, and deeply ashamed. In June 2011, he finally hits the brakes. One night, Dan skips the transfer routine and lets the system reveal the truth. Instantly, his account balance plummets into the negative millions. The entire fantasy laid bare. The next morning, he picks up the phone and calls his bank manager, voice shaking. He tries to confess, to offer the remaining cash back. The manager cuts him off. "Sir, it's a police matter now. We can't discuss this." Dan's heart sinks. He hangs up and waits for sirens. 1 hour, then 2, then a whole anxious day. But no one comes. The silence that follows is deafening. The silence stretches for days, then weeks. Dan realizes something worse than arrest. They're not coming because they're building a case. Every transaction, every withdrawal, every party documented. The real question isn't if they'll arrest him, it's how many years he'll get. 2 years pass and still no knock at the door. Dan lives in limbo as the bank's $1.6 million phantom loss quietly lurks in their ledgers, and guilt eats him alive. Finally, unable to take the uncertainty, he forces a resolution. In 2013, Dan contacts a major newspaper and spills everything. His wild story spreads fast. The bartender who exploited a midnight ATM glitch to live like a king. He even appears on national TV to explain how he did it, effectively daring the authorities to respond. This time, they do. Police charge Dan, and at long last he finds himself in a courtroom, facing the legal consequences of his 5-month spree. The case proves so unusual that even the judge and prosecutor struggle to grasp the scheme's finer points. The prosecutor struggles to explain the crime to the jury. He stole money that didn't exist? Even the judge asks for clarification twice. Dan almost laughs. They understand it about as well as the bank did. Dan pleads guilty, remorseful and relieved to finally atone. The sentence, 1 year in prison, followed by 18 months of community corrections. He serves his time and when it's over, slips back into ordinary life. The first day back at the bar, a regular recognizes him from the news. "You're that ATM guy." Dan nods, bracing for judgment. The man slides him a 20. "Best tip you'll ever get, from money I actually earned." They both laugh. It feels like absolution. No more luxury suites or easy riches, just an apron, a bar, and $20 an hour. Dan is back where he started, but not the same man. The fever dream of free money taught him a hard truth about himself. He nearly lost sight of who he was. Now, having paid the price, he's determined to never let temptation consume him again.